Every morning I wake up at 5:30, a lifelong habit that neither retirement nor age nor loneliness can erase. My name is Mervyn Frame. I'm 78 years old, and I've been a widower for 5 years now. It's a strange feeling to wake up in a bed with a void at your right hand, even though Dorothea slept there for almost 50 years. We bought this house in Billings in 1997. It seemed too big for a young family then, but Dorothea insisted. "We'll fill it with children, Mervyn," she said, stroking her rounded belly. "And grandchildren, too." Then I just nodded and smiled, calculating how many years we'd have to pay the mortgage. Being a real estate appraiser means always thinking in numbers. Dorothea was right. The house filled with voices. First, Eunice was born, then Hubert 4 years later. There were birthdays, school holidays, teenage quarrels, first loves, weddings, grandchildren born. Now this house is as quiet as a crypt. Only the floorboards creak under my feet, and the old clock in the living room. A gift from my father-in-law for our wedding. I wash my face in the mirror. Deep wrinkles, gray eyebrows, bags under my eyes. Dorothea always said my eyes were the color of autumn skies blue with a gray lilt. Now they were faded, like old jeans that had been through the washing machine too many times. "Well, old man," I say to my reflection, "another day. Breakfast, oatmeal, toast with jam, cup of black coffee. It's always the same." Dorothea laughed at my predictability. "You're like an old dog, Mervyn," she joked. "You'll walk the same path until you've trampled a rut to the center of the earth." Maybe she was right. My life is a series of habits clinging to each other like train cars. After breakfast, I read the newspaper. A real paper, not those news sites everyone else uses. Hubert always says I'm a dinosaur stuck in the last century. Maybe I am? But I like the rustle of the pages, the smell of printing ink, the feeling that I'm holding something real, not ephemeral. At 10 o'clock, the phone rings. I know who it is before I even pick it up. "Daddy, did you remember today?" Eunice, my daughter, always sounds like she's talking to a not-so-intelligent child. "Good afternoon, Eunice," I answer. "No, I haven't forgotten. 3 o'clock, dental clinic. I've reserved an after-hours appointment for you. Dr. Pollard will give you a cleaning at a discount. I've arranged it." Eunice has been a receptionist at the dental clinic for 25 years. She always negotiates discounts for me, always presents it as a special service, even though I know the discounts are part of the clinic's social program for elderly patients. "Thank you, Eunice." "And Dad?" She pauses. "I already know what's coming next." "Could you lend me some money? Tammy's graduation is coming up. Needs a dress, shoes, and those girlfriends of hers are going in a limo. Tammy is my granddaughter, Eunice's daughter. She's 16, and she is, as they say nowadays, a troubled teenager. Although, in my opinion, the problem is not her, it's that her parents are too busy being themselves." "How much do you need?" I ask, even though I know I'm not going to get that money back. $400 is enough," Eunice answers quickly, as if she's afraid I might change my mind. "I'll bring it to the reception." "Oh, thank you, Daddy." "You're the best," her voice warms, "but not for long. Just remember, 3 o'clock, don't be late." Hanging up the phone, I make a note in the small notebook I always carry in the breast pocket of my shirt. Eunice, $400, May 23rd, Tammy's graduation. There are other entries in there already. Hubert, $250, April 15th, car repair. Eunice, $300, March 2nd, new refrigerator. Hubert, $500, February 27th, credit card debt. I'm not stingy. Money has never been an end in itself for me, rather a tool, a way to provide security and comfort for my family. When Dorothea was alive, we traveled, helped our children with down payments on their homes, spoiled our grandchildren at Christmas and birthdays. But after she died, something changed. The calls and visits from the kids became less frequent, and the requests for money more frequent. At noon, I go for a walk. Billings is not one of the most picturesque towns, but I enjoy walking leisurely down familiar streets, nodding to my neighbors, watching the storefronts change with the seasons. Today, I decide to stop in at Feel Flowers, a small cafe on the corner of Maple Street and Oak Avenue. It serves the best apple pie in town, and older customers get free tea. "Good afternoon, Mr. Frame." Lydia, an older waitress who seems to have worked here all her life, greets me. The usual. "Yes, thank you, Lydia." I take a seat at my favorite table by the window. As I wait for my order, my gaze falls on the young couple at the table next to me. They are laughing, their hands touching as they reach for their napkins. In their eyes is the same expression I saw in Dorothea's 50 years ago. It makes me a little sad, but it doesn't hurt. Time dulls the pain. My cell phone rings. A gift from Hubert last Christmas. "So you'll always be in touch, Dad." Actually, so he could always find me when he needed something. "Hi, Dad." Hubert's voice sounded tense. "Listen, I've got a little problem." Hubert always has little problems that can only be solved with my money. "What's wrong?" I ask, already guessing. "You see, Rebecca and I decided to renovate the kitchen, and the contractor asked for a down payment, and we're a little short. Rebecca is Hubert's wife, works for an insurance company. As far as I know, they both make good salaries. But for some reason, they're always short on money. How much do you need?" I ask, pulling out a notebook. 1,200. He says it like he's asking for a couple dollars for coffee. "We'll pay it back as soon as my quarterly bonus comes in." I doubt I'll ever see that money, but I nod, even though he can't see it. "Okay, Hubert, I can wire you the money tonight." "Thanks, Dad." His voice immediately becomes cheerful. "You're a big help. By the way, Rebecca and I were thinking of taking you out to dinner this weekend. I'll pick you up on Saturday, okay? There you go. Dinner as a thank you for the money. Or rather, to assuage my conscience." "Sure, Hubert, I'll be waiting." After lunch, I go to a dentist appointment. Eunice sits at the receptionist's desk, tapping away at her keyboard and talking on the phone at the same time. When she sees me, she squeezes out a smile and points to a chair in the waiting area. I sit down and pull an envelope containing $400 out of my pocket. 10 minutes later, Eunice comes up to me. "Daddy, Dr. Pollard will be free in 5 minutes." She notices the envelope in my hands. "Oh, you didn't forget. Thank you so much. You're just saving Tammy from social collapse." She takes the envelope and, without looking inside, puts it in her bag. No receipt, no promise to return it. Just a "thank you," and that's it. "How's Tammy?" I ask. "Haven't seen her in a while." Eunice waves her hand as if warding off a pesky fly. "Oh, you know teenagers. Always on their phones with their friends, homework last. But she's a good girl, just a difficult age. Maybe she could come visit me. I'll bake her an apple pie like she likes." "Sure, Dad, I'll tell her." Eunice is already looking at her computer. "Oh, I need to answer that email. Come to room 3, Doctor. Pollard is waiting." After the appointment, Eunice doesn't even come out to say goodbye, only waving at me from behind the counter while talking on the phone again. In the evening, sitting in my chair with a book, I think about when everything changed. When did my children stop seeing me as a father and start seeing me as an ATM machine? When did their calls and visits start to be accompanied by requests for money? Maybe it was after Dorothea died. Or even earlier, but I just didn't notice, blinded by my love for my family? Before I go to bed, I pull out an old photo album. Here's Eunice at 6, with pigtails and a gap-toothed smile, holding her first fish she caught. Here's Hubert in his school uniform before his first day of middle school, so serious and proud. Here are all 4 of us at a picnic by the lake, Dorothea laughing, throwing her head back, her hair golden in the sun. Where are these children now? When have they turned into adults who see their aging father as nothing more than a source of money? I flip through the pages further. Graduations, weddings, grandchildren's births. With each photo, I recognize less and less of my own children. Their smiles become strained, their eyes become calculating. As I close the album, I feel a heaviness growing in my chest. It's not just sadness or disappointment, it's a realization slowly breaking through years of self-deception. My children are using me. They don't call to see how I'm feeling. They don't invite me to dinner to spend time together. Everything has a price, and that price is measured by the number in my bank account. I go to bed with a heavy heart. Tomorrow I will start keeping score not only on the money they ask from me, but also on the time they are willing to give me without financial gain to themselves. And I fear that this account will prove to be very short. Fall in billings always comes suddenly. Just yesterday, the leaves on the trees were green, and this morning I woke up to a world colored yellow and red. Sitting on the veranda with a cup of coffee, I watch the wind pick up the first fallen leaves and swirl them in the air. Dorothea and I used to love to collect fall bouquets. She would arrange them all over the house, between the pages of books, on the mantelpiece, on the windowsills. "That's how fall gets into the house," she used to say. The ringing of the phone pulls me out of my memories. The name on the screen is Tammy, my granddaughter. "Hi, Grandpa." Her voice sounds strained, unnatural. "How are you?" "Hello, Tammy." I can't hide my joy. "I'm good, sweetie. How are you doing? How's prom?" "It's going great. My mom said you helped me with the money for my dress. I wanted to, well, thank you." I can practically see Eunice standing next to her, telling her what to say. This call is not Tammy's initiative. It's a thank you for the money Eunice demanded. "You're welcome, sweetheart. I'm always happy to help. Why don't you come and see me this weekend? I'll bake your favorite apple pie." "Oh, I'd love to, but I've got schoolwork to do, and I've got graduation, and—" "Of course I understand," I interrupted, to save her from having to come up with another excuse. "Maybe some other time." "Yes, definitely." She sounded relieved. "Okay, I gotta run. Bye, Grandpa." "Bye, Tammy." I hang up the phone and sigh. When did it start? When did my grandkids stop coming over just to visit without their parents? Tammy and her brother Kyle used to spend entire weekends at my house. We'd go to the movies, bake cookies. I taught them chess. Now they only call when their parents remind them, and visits are rare. The grandchildren from Hubert, twins Oliver and Amelia, are now in their first year of college. The last time I saw them was Christmas, and they spent the entire evening staring at their phones. They didn't even ask how I was doing. When I tried to talk about their studies, Oliver just shrugged and said, "Fine. Well, it's Saturday night and Hubert is supposed to pick me up for dinner. I decide to wear my best sweater, a dark blue cashmere sweater, a gift from Dorothea for our last birthday together. She always said that color accentuates my eyes. Hubert is 40 minutes late. When he finally pulls up, he doesn't even apologize, just honks his horn instead of getting in. "Hey, Dad," he says, as I get into the passenger seat. "How's it going?" "Not bad, Hubert. And you and Rebecca?" "We're doing great. The kitchen remodel is well underway. The contractor promises to be done by Thanksgiving." All the way to his house, Hubert talks about the renovation, about work problems, about Oliver and Amelia asking for new laptops for school. Not once does he ask about my business, my health, what I've been up to lately. Hubert's house is a 2-story mansion in an upscale neighborhood in Billings. I remember 12 years ago when I helped them with their down payment, giving nearly a third of my savings. Hubert and Rebecca were so grateful then, so full of plans for the future. Now, looking at their house, I wonder if they really can't afford a kitchen remodel without my help, or if they're just used to their father always paying for it. Rebecca meets us at the door, dressed like she's going to a fashion show, not a family dinner. "Mervyn, How nice to see you. She kisses me on the cheek. She smells of expensive perfume. Come on in, dinner's almost ready. There's a huge TV on in the living room, some sports game on. Hubert immediately plops down on the couch and grabs the remote. Dad, do you mind if I watch the rest of the game? There's only 10 minutes left. Without waiting for my response, he dives into the viewing. I sit down in the chair and look around. New furniture, expensive paintings on the walls, a crystal chandelier. In the corner is a grand piano that, as far as I know, no one plays. It was bought for prestige, as Rebecca once said. Would you like a drink, Mervyn? Rebecca asks from the kitchen. We have some excellent red wine. No, thank you, I say. Water would be better. She brings me a glass of water and I notice the new diamond bracelet on her wrist. I wonder how much it cost, and if it was bought with my money. Dinner takes place in a strange atmosphere. Hubert and Rebecca discuss their acquaintances, their jobs, their vacation plans. Sometimes they throw me a question but don't listen to the answer, interrupting each other with new topics. I feel like a decoration, a piece of furniture that should be present but doesn't have to participate. After dessert, a store-bought cheesecake that Rebecca passes off as homemade, Hubert clears his throat. Dad, Rebecca and I were thinking, you're all alone in a big house. You must be lonely. I tense up. We've had this conversation a few times. They suggest I move in with them, in the annex behind the house. That way, we can keep an eye on you, they say. But I know they want my house. They want to sell it and invest the money in the future. Their future, not mine. Thank you, but I'm doing just fine on my own, I say firmly. But Dad, you're 78. What if you fall, or forget to turn off the stove? If I fall, I press the emergency button. I point to the bracelet on my wrist. And I've been turning off the stove for 60 years without a reminder. Hubert and Rebecca exchange a look. I know that look. The old man's out of his mind. Okay, Dad, whatever you say. Hubert raises his hands in feigned surrender. We're just worried about you. The rest of the evening passes in strained conversation. When it's time to leave, I'm almost relieved to say goodbye. The following week, I decide to visit Eunice unannounced. I rarely go to her house. We usually see each other at the dental clinic or some cafe. When I arrive at her house, I notice that there is a new car in the driveway. That's odd, because Eunice had complained about not having enough money for Tammy's graduation. I ring the doorbell. Tammy opens the door, a look of surprise bordering on consternation on her face. Grandpa, what are you doing here? I thought I'd come visit you, sweetheart. Is your mom home? Yeah, she and Daddy are in the kitchen. Come on in. I go into the house and I hear voices from the kitchen. Eunice and her husband Harry don't see me coming, and I witness their conversation. And when he finally gives up, we can sell the house, Harry says. Hubert will claim his share, of course, but we can… Hush! Eunice cuts him off. Tammy might hear. What's the big deal? She already knows the old man sitting on a pile of money that we'll get when… I take a step, and the floorboards creak under my foot. The conversation in the kitchen is momentarily cut off. Dad? Eunice peeks out of the kitchen, a mixture of surprise and fear on her face. What are you doing here? I thought I'd pay you a visit, I say calmly, though I'm seething inside. I haven't seen Tammy and Harry in a while. You could have called. There's irritation in her voice. It wasn't necessary before. The rest of the visit passes in a tense atmosphere. Eunice and Harry exchange nervous glances, and I pretend I didn't hear anything. But something inside me is breaking. It's one thing to suspect that your children are waiting for you to die for an inheritance, and quite another to hear it with your own ears. At home, I sit in the dark for a long time, looking at pictures of Eunice and Hubert as children. What went wrong? Where did I go wrong in raising them? Or is it not me, but that the world has changed, more cynical, more greedy? Dorothea had always been tougher on the children. Don't spoil them, Mervyn, she used to say. They must know the value of money, the value of labor. But after she died, I must have overdone it, trying to fill the void in their lives with money. And the result is that they see me only as a wallet, not a father. I don't call the kids for the next 2 weeks, and they don't get in touch either. Usually by now, one of them would have called with another request for money. Their silence only confirms my suspicions. Without financial gain, they're not interested in me. On Tuesday, I meet Beatrice Hatch, the widow of my old friend Frank, in the park. Frank and I worked together for nearly 30 years until illness took him 3 years ago. Since then, Beatrice and I occasionally cross paths in the park or at the wildflowers, exchanging news. "Mervyn," she waves at me. "How nice to see you." We sit down on a bench, and she pulls a paper bag of scones out of her bag. "I baked them this morning," she holds it out to me. "Frank always said my cinnamon buns could raise the dead." I take one, and its aroma instantly takes me back to a time when Frank and I used to eat lunch together, and Beatrice always sent him homemade baked goods. "How are you doing, Beatrice?" I ask. "Oh, still the same. The grandchildren are growing up, the daughters are busy working, and I'm shortening my days with my books and baking. And you? How are Eunice and Hubert?" I sigh. Beatrice is one of the few people I can open up to. To be honest, not very well. I seem to be only a source of money for them. Beatrice nods with understanding. Frank has also faced this in recent years. Our youngest, Lorraine, was always asking for money for this and that. And when he got sick, her visits became quite rare. What did you do? Frank changed his will a month before he died. He left most of the estate to an education fund for his grandchildren, with the stipulation that they couldn't get the money until they were 25. Lorraine was furious. "And how is she now?" "Doesn't speak to me," Beatrice smiled sadly. "But you know, I don't regret it. Frank was right. If I left it all to her, she'd just squander the money, and this way the grandchildren will get an education." What she said makes me think. Maybe I should change my will too. But how do I check if my suspicions are correct, or if I am judging my children too harshly? "Beatrice," I say after a pause, "would you like to come to my house for dinner this Saturday? I'm going to invite Eunice and Hubert and their families, and Oscar Pound, a former colleague of mine. Nothing fancy, just a family dinner." "I'd love to, Mervyn," she smiles. "Just let me bring dessert." "You got it." Back home, I call Oscar. We haven't seen each other in months, and he gladly accepts the invitation. Then I call Eunice and Hubert. Both are surprised. I don't usually do family dinners, but agree to come. Hubert seems especially interested when he learns there will be guests. "Who exactly is coming, Dad?" he asks, as if by the way. "Beatrice Hatch and Oscar Pound. You know them." "Oh, yes, of course." His voice sounds disappointed. I guess he was expecting more useful introductions. I spend the next few days making preparations. I order catering from the restaurant Dorothea and I used to frequent on our wedding anniversaries. I buy good wine, even though I hardly drink any myself. I put pictures of my children and grandchildren in prominent places, as if trying to remind them and myself that we were once a real family. But deep down, I know that this dinner isn't just an attempt to repair the relationship. It's a test. I want to see how my children behave in front of strangers. Will they show their true colors? Or will they put on the masks of loving and caring children? And if my suspicions are confirmed, I will have to make a difficult decision. A decision that will change our relationship forever. Saturday was surprisingly sunny for late October. I was up at 5:30 as usual, though I didn't sleep well. The whole day was spent making final preparations for dinner. I checked the table settings, arranged the candles, and wiped down the antique silver service, a wedding gift from Dorothea's parents, which we used only on special occasions. At 4 o'clock, the food was delivered from Antonio's. I ordered everything my children loved: roast beef with Yorkshire pudding for Hubert, pasta with seafood for Eunice, fried chicken with mashed potatoes for my grandchildren. I didn't forget Dorothea's favorite salad, with pear, blue cheese, and walnuts. She may not be with us, but her presence will be felt at the table. Beatrice arrived first, at 5:30 sharp. She was holding a large box of apple pie, my favorite. "Mervyn, your house looks beautiful," she looked around approvingly. Dorothea would be pleased. "Thank you, Beatrice." I took the pie from her. "Come into the living room. Oscar should be here any minute." Oscar Pound, my former colleague and longtime friend, showed up 10 minutes later, limping more than usual. Recent knee surgery hadn't helped his arthritis much. "Mervyn, the old fox." He shook my hand firmly. "How many years? How many winters?" "Only 3 months, Oscar," I smiled. "How's the knee?" "It hurts like hell, for the rain, I guess." He hung up his coat and turned to Beatrice. "Mrs. Hatch, you're as charming as ever." Beatrice blushed slightly. Oscar was always gallant with the ladies, even in his 74 years. We sat down in the living room, and I offered an aperitif. The conversation flowed leisurely about the weather, about the new shopping center in Billings, about the recent increase in property taxes. It was so easy and enjoyable to talk to people who didn't see you only as a wallet. At 6 o'clock, Hubert and his family drove up. Rebecca was dressed as if she were going to a social gathering rather than a family dinner, in an elegant black dress and pearl necklace. The twins, Oliver and Amelia, looked bored before they even crossed the threshold of the house. "Dad, sorry I'm late." Hubert didn't look guilty. "Traffic." "You're not late," I replied. "Dinner is at 6:30, just like I told you." Eunice and her family were the last to arrive, at 6:20. Harry, her husband, headed straight for the bar, and Tammy was on the phone, barely saying hello. "Daddy, I'm sorry, but we can only stay until 8, Eunice announced in lieu of a greeting. "Tammy has a big test tomorrow, and she needs to study." "Sure," I nodded, even though I knew it was an excuse. Eunice just didn't want to spend any more time here than necessary. When everyone was gathered in the living room, I introduced the guests to those who weren't familiar with them. Oliver and Amelia shook hands with Oscar and Beatrice with apparent reluctance, and Tammy didn't even take her eyes off the phone. "Tammy," Eunice pulled her back, "say hello to Grandpa's guests." "Hi," Tammy mumbled, not looking up. I noticed Beatrice and Oscar exchange glances. They knew my grandchildren well enough to realize how much they'd changed over the years. At 6:30, we moved into the dining room. I took the seat at the head of the table, the seat that used to belong to Dorothea. She always insisted that I sit at the head, but I conceded to her, knowing how she liked to preside over family dinners. The food was excellent, but the atmosphere at the table left a lot to be desired. Hubert and Harry were talking mostly about work and sports. Eunice and Rebecca were discussing a mutual acquaintance, and all 4 grandchildren were either silent or answering in one word to Oscar and Beatrice's attempts to make conversation with them. "So, Oliver," Oscar turned to Hubert's son, "your father said you were studying business administration?" "Yeah," Oliver shrugged, not looking away from his plate. "What do you think? Interesting?" "It's okay." Oscar gave me a helpless look, and I just shook my head slightly. "Don't try so hard," my look said. Beatrice tried to talk to Tammy about her plans after school, but got the same cold reception. When we moved on to dessert, Beatrice's gorgeous apple pie, the conversation somehow livened up. Hubert talked about his promotion at work. Eunice shared the news of the clinic expansion. I noticed them both especially trying to impress Oscar, who still had connections in Billings business circles. "And you, Mervyn," Rebecca turned to me with unexpected interest. "How do you spend your days? Aren't you bored alone in such a big house?" I knew what she was getting at. This talk of a big house always led to an offer to sell it and move in with them or into a nursing home. Not at all, I answered calmly. I have a lot of activities, reading, walking, sometimes helping out at the local library, and the house. It's full of memories. Every room, every corner reminds me of Dorothea, of you when you were children. But Papa, Eunice interjected, it's a lot of work to keep a house like this in order. And the heating costs, the electricity. I can manage, I said. I'm financially secure, so you have nothing to worry about. At the mention of finances, I saw Hubert and Harry look at each other. I wondered, I thought, if they had already discussed among themselves how much I was worth. At some point during dinner, I needed salt. The salt shaker was at the other end of the table, near Eunice. Eunice, please pass the salt, I asked. She was engrossed in her conversation with Rebecca and didn't seem to hear me. I repeated the request a little louder. Eunice, salt, please. She turned to me with a sort of annoyed expression on her face and suddenly said loudly, "What? A servant should serve and not ask?" And laughed as if she had said something incredibly witty. Hubert snorted, Rebecca chuckled softly, and Harry laughed openly. The grandchildren continued to stare into their phones as if nothing had happened. A silence ensued. Beatrice froze with her fork in her hand, and Oscar frowned, shifting his gaze from Eunice to me. I felt the blood rush to my face, not from embarrassment, from anger and pain. A servant. Is that how my daughter sees me? The man who worked his whole life to provide her with a trouble-free existence? Who helped with the down payment on the house, paid for her wedding, gave money for Tammy's education? Slowly, very slowly, I put my napkin down on the table and stood up. All eyes turned to me. "Mervyn?" Beatrice said worriedly. I took a deep breath, trying to control my emotions. I'd felt used, cheated, forgotten many times over the past few years, but never humiliated. "You know," I began quietly but firmly, "I've long suspected that for you." I looked at Eunice and Hubert. "I'm just a source of money. But today I'm convinced that I'm not even a father. I'm a servant." "Daddy, come on!" Eunice exclaimed with feigned surprise. "It was just a joke." "Yes, Dad. Don't take it so hard," Hubert said. But I saw no remorse in his eyes, only worry that I might take offense and stop giving them money. "Just kidding," I repeated. "Good. Then here's another joke for you. I've decided to change my will." There was absolute silence. Even the grandchildren got off their phones. "I'm going to donate all of my savings, which is $780,000, I paused, watching my children's eyes widen at the mention of the amount, to the Billings Senior Citizens Charitable Foundation. "What?" Hubert jumped up from his seat. "Dad, you can't." "Yes, I can." I remained calm, though my heart was pounding like crazy. "It's my money, and I can use it as I see fit. But it's an inheritance." Eunice looked as if she had been struck. "Our inheritance. Have you earned it?" I asked quietly. "When was the last time you visited me without asking for money? When did you inquire about my health, my affairs? When did you spend time with me simply because I am your father, not because I can pay your bills?" Eunice and Hubert looked at each other, clearly not knowing what to say. Their spouses looked shocked, and their grandchildren looked confused. "Mervyn," Oscar put his hand on my shoulder. "Maybe we should discuss this later, in private." "No, Oscar," I shook my head. I'd been silent enough. I had let them use me for too long. I turned back to my children. "I've already contacted a lawyer. I'm rewriting the will on Monday. The entire house and all my savings are going to a foundation that will help elderly people who find themselves alone, abandoned by their families. People like me." "You're not abandoned," Eunice exclaimed, panic in her voice. "We love you, Daddy. Love you." I grinned bitterly. "Love is not money, Eunice. It's time, attention, care. And you're just waiting for me to give up so you can divide my assets. Yes, I heard your conversation with Harry." Eunice turned pale and Harry lowered his gaze. "Papa, you can't do this to us." Hubert's voice shook with restrained anger. "We are your children, your flesh and blood." "Yes, you are my flesh and blood," I agreed. "And that's the only reason I've turned a blind eye to your attitude toward me for so long. But there are limits. You crossed it today." Oliver spoke up suddenly. "Grandfather, but what about us? What about college? What about college?" I turned to him. "You get a scholarship, Oliver. And if you don't, your parents are perfectly capable of paying for your education. They both work, make good salaries. You'll just have to give up some of the extravagances, new cars every 2 years, expensive jewelry, kitchen renovations." Rebecca flared up, clearly recognizing the hint of a diamond bracelet she'd bought after I'd given them the money for the renovations. "It's not fair," Eunice exclaimed, tears welling up in her voice. "After all we've done for you." "What exactly have you done for me, Eunice?" I asked quietly. "Tell me. I'm very interested to hear it." She opened her mouth, then closed it, unable to find the words. "Exactly," I nodded. "Nothing. All these years I've been an ATM machine for you, nothing more. But you know what? That ATM is closing. Right now." I turned to Beatrice and Oscar. "I apologize for the scene. This is not how I envisioned this evening." "It's okay, Mervyn," Beatrice smiled softly. "Sometimes you have to say what's on your mind. Papa, I can and I will. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like you to leave. All of you." I looked at my children and their families. "I need to talk to my friends. Real friends who see me as a person, not a wallet." "But Grandpa?" Tammy began, showing some interest for the first time all night. "No, Tammy," I shook my head. "Not now. I'm too upset to continue this conversation. Please leave." Eunice burst into tears. Hubert looked like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Harry and Rebecca looked over at each other, obviously thinking about how much money they had just lost. The grandchildren looked at the floor and the phone, not knowing what was going on but sensing it was something serious. "You heard your father," Oscar finally said, standing up. "I think you'd better leave." Slowly, reluctantly, they began to pack. Eunice was still crying. Hubert was throwing angry glances at me. No one said goodbye as they left the house. Only Tammy turned around in the doorway and said quietly, "Bye, Grandpa." As the door closed behind them, I felt my legs give out and I sank into the nearest chair. Beatrice came over and put her hand on my shoulder. "Are you all right, Mervyn?" "No," I answered honestly. "But I think I will be." Oscar brought a bottle of brandy and 3 shot glasses from the kitchen. "I think we could all use a drink," he said, pouring. I took the shot glass with a trembling hand. Strangely, I felt not only pain and bitterness, but a kind of release. It was as if a huge weight I had been carrying for years had suddenly fallen from my shoulders. "To the truth," Oscar proposed a toast, "however bitter it may be." "To the truth," Beatrice and I echoed, and I took a sip, feeling the brandy burn my throat and spread warmth through my body. 2 days had passed since that dinner. 2 days of silence, broken only by phone calls I didn't take. Eunice called 17 times, Hubert 23. They left messages, one after another. First apologies, then entreaties, then reproaches, and finally threats. "Dad, it was just a stupid joke. Please call me back." Eunice's voice trembled in the first message. "Dad, you can't seriously consider disinheriting your own children. It's ridiculous." Hubert was indignant in his 4th message. "Do you realize that we could contest the will? Any court will side with us." This was already Harry, Eunice's husband, clearly seizing his wife's cell phone. I listened to their voices detachedly, as if they belonged to strangers. In a way, they were. These people who were calling me, threatening me, begging me, they weren't my children. Not the children Dorothea and I had raised, whose bedtime stories we had read, whose broken knees we had bandaged, whose successes we had rejoiced over. Monday morning I dressed particularly carefully. The dark blue suit I'd worn to Dorothea's funeral, white shirt, pinstripe tie, a gift from Eunice for some long-forgotten Christmas. He looked at himself in the mirror, an old man with a straight back and a determined look. Dorothea would approve. Before I left, I turned off my cell phone. Nothing should distract me today. The office of Simon Welch, my lawyer, was in downtown Billings, in an old brick building that remembered the days of the Wild West. Simon was the son of an old friend of mine and had taken me on as a client when his father retired. Young, energetic, but with a respect for his elders that you rarely see nowadays. Minus Mr. Frame. He met me at the front door of the office, shook my hand firmly. "Come in, I'm all set." Simon's office was simple but tasteful. An oak desk, leather armchairs, and walls hung with diplomas and photos of important clients. In one of them, I spotted Simon Senior Simon, the father of the current lawyer, with whom we'd been friends for over 40 years. "So, Mr. Frame," Simon sat down across from me, placing the file in front of him. "Are you sure about your decision?" "Absolutely," I answered without hesitation. "Do you realize that your children may try to contest the will?" "I do." "And what do you say to that, as a professional?" Simon tapped his pen on the table thoughtfully. "If we do it right, they don't stand a chance. You're in your right mind, that's obvious. You're not under pressure. Your decision is deliberate. The only thing they can try to prove is that you're acting under the influence of strong emotions, under stress." "I'm acting completely deliberately," I said firmly. That incident at dinner was just the last straw. My decision had been a long time coming. "Good," Simon nodded. "In that case, I've prepared all the necessary documents. We'll need 2 witnesses. I can be one of them, and my secretary can be the other, if you don't mind." "I don't mind." We spent the next hour going over the paperwork. I was transferring all my assets, house, savings, investments, to a trust to be set up after my death. This fund, named in Dorothea's honor, would help Billings seniors who were alone, pay for medical care, recreational activities, help with home and apartment repairs, all the things that many elderly people who have been abandoned by their children can't afford. "That's it," Simon said, as the last signature was put down. "It's official now. Your children won't get a dime." Strangely, I felt no gloating or even satisfaction, just a quiet sadness and maybe some relief, like I'd finally put an end to a long, exhausting story. "Thank you, Simon," I shook his hand. "You're a good lawyer, like your father. Always happy to help, Mr. Frame. If I could ask you a personal question?" Sure. "Do you regret your decision?" I thought about it for a moment. Do I regret that my relationship with my children had gotten to this point? Yes, very much. Do I regret deciding to give the money to those who really need it instead of those who are just waiting for it? No, not one bit. Simon nodded respectfully. "Then I'm at peace for you." Walking out of the lawyer's office, I felt a strange lightness. It was as if the heavy weight I'd been carrying for years had suddenly disappeared. I decided to walk home, enjoying the fall day, which was surprisingly warm and sunny. On the way, I stopped by the Wildflower Cafe, the same cafe where Beatrice and I sometimes met. She was sitting at our usual table by the window, as if she had been waiting for me, even though we hadn't made an appointment. "Mervyn," she waved her hand at me. "I knew you'd stop by today." "Beatrice," I sat down across from her. "Are you psychic?" "No, I just know you well," she smiled. "You always come in here after you've done something important. And today I assume you had a very important case." I nodded. not surprised at her insight. Beatrice had always been able to read people. "I've been to see a lawyer. I rewrote my will. And how do you feel?" "Nah, strange," I admitted. On the one hand, light, as if I'd lost a great weight. On the other, sad. They are my children, after all. Beatrice covered my hand with hers. Her palm was warm and soft. "You know, Mervyn, sometimes the hardest decision is the right one. Frank told me that before he died, when he decided to change his will. He cried when he signed the papers, but he knew he was doing the right thing." "And how is your daughter now?" "Lorraine, I think." "She doesn't speak to me," Beatrice shrugged. "But the grandchildren come secretly. They realize it's not about money. It's about principle. Their mother was wrong, and they know it." "I don't think my grandchildren are as wise," I sighed. "They are completely on their parents' side." "Give them time," Beatrice squeezed my hand. "They are still young. With age comes understanding." We sat in the cafe for another hour, discussing life, sharing memories, making plans for the future. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive. Not just existing day after day waiting for the end, but really living with plans, dreams, desires. When I got home, Hubert's car was parked in the driveway. He was sitting on the porch, slouching, as if he had spent hours there. When he saw me, he jumped up. "Dad, finally! I've been calling you all day." "I turned my phone off," I said calmly as I walked past him to the door. "Dad, we need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about, Hubert. I've already made up my mind." I opened the door and walked into the house. Hubert followed me in without waiting for an invitation. "Dad, listen." He grabbed my hand. "I understand you're offended. Eunice said something stupid. It was a bad joke. We all agree on that. But to disinherit us? Your children? That's insane." I released my hand and walked into the living room, sitting down in my chair. Hubert remained standing, looming over me as if he wanted to crush me with his height and youth. "This is not madness, Hubert. It's justice." "Justice?" He almost shouted the word. "What the hell is justice? We are your children, your flesh and blood. That money should stay in the family." "Were you acting like a family?" I asked quietly. "When was the last time you called me just to see how I was feeling? When you didn't come over because you needed the money, but because you missed your father?" Hubert opened his mouth, then closed it, unable to find an answer. "You see?" I nodded. "You can't even remember, because it never happened. I stopped being a father to you and Eunice a long time ago. I became an ATM, a source of money. And now that I've cut off that source, you've suddenly remembered your feelings of kinship. That's not true." Hubert turned red with anger. "We love you, Dad. We just have our own lives, you know? Work, kids, worries." Oh, I understand perfectly," I nodded. "You have your own life, and there's no room for an old dad. Unless that father opens his wallet." Hubert started pacing around the room, clenching and unclenching his fists. "You can't do this to us, Dad. We were counting on that money. Oliver and Amelia have college. We have a mortgage. Don't you and Rebecca have jobs?" I interrupted him. "You can't support yourself and your children? Do you have to wait until I'm dead to get my money? That's not the point." He raised his voice. It's wrong. That money should stay in the family." "It will stay in the family." I made quotation marks with my fingers. "A big family of lonely old Billings people who really need help. Unlike you, they don't have kids to take care of them. Or they do. But those kids, like you, only think about money." Hubert stopped, looking at me with some new expression, a mixture of surprise and fear. "Did you really do it? Rewritten the will?" "Yes, this morning." He sank down on the couch, wrapping his arms around his head. "God, Eunice is going to kill me. We'd already made plans for that money, that's it. They've already divided my inheritance while I was still alive, planned who'd get what, how they'd spend it. Maybe they even secretly wished me dead so they could get their hands on the money. Hubert, I said quietly but firmly, I think you'd better go. What? He looked up. No, Dad. We've got to solve this problem. There is no problem here. There's my decision, and it's final. But, Dad, Hubert, I stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. Please leave. I have nothing more to say to you. He looked at me with a long, hard stare, then rose slowly. You'll regret this, he said quietly. We'll contest the will. We'll prove that you were out of your mind. Try, I shrugged. Simon Welch, my lawyer, had anticipated this reaction. He prepared all the documents so that it would be very difficult to challenge them. Besides, I had a medical examination today, which confirmed that I was of sound mind and memory. It wasn't true. There had been no examination, but Hubert couldn't know that. He turned pale. You've thought of everything. Yes, Hubert, I may be old, but I'm not stupid. He clenched his fists, and for a moment I thought he might hit me. But then he just turned and walked out, slamming the door so hard that the glass shook. I sank into the chair, feeling my hands shaking. This was harder than I'd expected. But I didn't give up, didn't give in to the manipulation. For the first time in years, I felt strong. The next day, Eunice arrived. Unlike Hubert, she chose a different tactic. Tears, pleading, appealing to our family ties. Daddy, please, she sobbed, sitting on the sofa in the living room. I didn't mean to hurt you. It was a stupid joke. I love you, you know that. I looked at her face red with tears, and felt nothing but tiredness. Where were those tears when I called her just to talk and she said she was busy? Where was the love when I asked her to bring her grandchildren and she always made excuses? Eunice, I said calmly, stop crying. It won't help. But Daddy, you can't do this to us. We're family. Family isn't just blood, Eunice. It's care, attention, love. Where's all that been for the last few years? She wiped away her tears, looking at me with a new intonation. You don't understand, Dad. We have our own lives, our own worries. We can't be around you all the time. I'm not asking you to be all the time, but just once in a while? Not just when you need money? Not just on holidays and not always? Is it that much? Eunice lowered her eyes. I'm sorry, Dad. We'll make it up to you, I promise. Just please make it right. Redo the will. No, Eunice. The decision has been made and it's final. She looked up at me, and in her eyes I saw not sadness, but anger. You'll regret this, she said quietly, almost hissing. We'll find a way to contest the will. You can't just disinherit us. I can, I said calmly, and I've already done it. She stood up, no longer trying to act sad. You know what, Dad? I've always told Harry you're selfish, always thinking only of yourself. And here's the proof. You're willing to throw money away on other people's old people just to spoil your own kids. I'm not salting you, Eunice. I'm just putting my money where it can do some real good. People who really need help, not people who just want a new car or a kitchen remodel. She was choking with rage. You're gonna regret this. When you die alone, you'll remember my words. With those words, she stormed out of the house, slamming the door as hard as Hubert had the day before. Apparently, it's a family trait. I sat in silence, feeling strangely calm. The masks had been dropped. I now knew exactly what was more important to my children, money or a relationship with me. And that knowledge, bitter as it was, gave me freedom. Freedom from illusions, from false hopes, from having to buy their love. Beatrice called in the evening. How are you, Mervyn? She asked with genuine concern. Have Eunice and Hubert visited you yet? Oh yes, I grinned wryly. Both of them, with threats, tears and accusations. And how are you feeling? I wondered. How do I feel? Devastated? Broken? Betrayed? Oh, free, I finally answered. I feel free, Beatrice. For the first time in years, I can live the life I want without trying to buy my children's love, without waiting for the next call for money, without thinking about how they will divide my estate after I die. I'm happy for you, Mervyn. I could hear the warm smile in her voice. It's not an easy decision, but it seems like the right one. Yes, I agreed. It's not easy, but it's the right thing to do. After my conversation with Beatrice, I went out onto the veranda. The evening was quiet, warm for late October. The first stars were lighting up over Billings. I sat in the old rocking chair that had once belonged to Dorothea and thought about what she would say now. Would she approve of my decision? Probably, yes. She'd always been fair and didn't tolerate manipulation. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace with myself. Yes, my relationship with my children may be ruined forever, but they were ruined long before that. I just didn't want to admit it. Now I could face the truth, and that truth, as bitter as it was, made me free. November in Billings is a gray, dank time, when the cold wind drives fallen leaves through the streets, and the sky seems so low you can touch it with your hand. But for me, this November was special. The beginning of a new life. The first thing I did was disconnect my home phone. Not just disconnected, I canceled my contract with the phone company. A decision I had been putting off for years was made in 5 minutes and implemented in one visit to the provider's office. The calls from Eunice and Hubert were getting more and more, and each one brought only pain and annoyance. I kept my cell phone, but changed the number. I only gave the new one to Beatrice, Oscar, and my lawyer Simon. The others don't need to know it. If my children needed to contact me so badly, they could write letters, though I doubted they'd remember how to do it. The second step was to change the locks. I called a locksmith who replaced all the locks in the house in an hour. The old keys that I had once so happily handed to Eunice and Hubert, just in case, did not fit. My house became my fortress, where no one could enter without my permission. Beatrice approved of these measures. That's right, Mervyn. The boundaries must be clearly marked. Otherwise, they will continue to manipulate you. Oscar was more restrained. Isn't that a bit drastic, old boy? After all, they are your children. Children who only see me as a wallet, I reminded him. Children who are waiting for me to die so they can divide the inheritance. Oscar couldn't find anything to object, but the most important change was my new occupation. One day, while walking past the Golden Autumn Community Senior Center, I saw an ad. Volunteers wanted. I used to pass by such announcements without thinking. How could I, a pensioner, help other old people? But now, after everything that had happened, I stopped and went inside. The center turned out to be a bright, cozy place with soft armchairs, bookshelves, and tables for board games. On the walls hung pictures, obviously drawn by the visitors themselves. Older people sat in groups, some playing chess, some knitting, some just talking over a cup of tea. "How can I help you?" a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a tired smile asked me. The name tag said, "Martha King, Director." "I'm here about the volunteer ad," I answered, surprised at myself. "My name is Mervyn Frame. I'm 78 years old, and I think I could do something to help." Martha brightened. "Mr. Frame, you don't know how glad we are. We are so short of male volunteers. Many of our visitors are widows who simply lack male companionship." We talked with Martha for about an hour. It turned out that the center exists on meager city subsidies and donations. The visitors are mostly lonely elderly people who have nowhere to go and no one to talk to. The center organizes meals, leisure activities, and sometimes medical assistance for them. "What can I do for you?" I asked. I was a real estate appraiser. I don't know if my skills would be useful. Oh, Mr. Frame, we have many avenues. You could run a chess club, or help with minor repairs, or read aloud to the visually impaired, or just talk to people. Believe me, sometimes that's the most valuable thing you can give to a lonely person. I chose chess and reading. Always loved both of these things, and now I could share my hobbies with others. It was agreed that I would come 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. When I told Beatrice about my new activity, she was delighted. That's wonderful, Mervyn. You'll make new friends. You'll feel needed. And that is so important at our age. My first day at the center was a little awkward. I'm not used to being in a new group, and even as a volunteer. But soon the awkwardness passed. It turned out that many visitors to the center are interesting people with rich life experience. Former teachers, engineers, nurses, accountants, people who have lived long, often difficult lives. Edna Mortimer, the 82-year-old widow of the former mayor of Billings, turned out to be an excellent chess player. She beat me in the first game, which made the others laugh. "Don't feel bad, Mr. Frame," she consoled me. "I've been playing chess since I was 7 years old. My father was a state champion." Gerald Willis, a former high school history teacher who was almost completely blind but retained a clear mind and phenomenal memory, became my constant listener. I would read history books to him, and he would comment, often correcting the authors. "No, no, it wasn't like that," he exclaimed. "I was reading documents from that period, primary sources." Rita Simmons, a quiet woman with sad eyes, thanked me every time for reading so sincerely that I was willing to read for her for hours. "You know, Mr. Frame," she said one day, "my son hasn't called me in 3 years. Said he had his own life and I was just in the way. And I've never even seen my grandchildren. Your voice. It reminds me of when I had a family." I shook her hand in silence, understanding her pain like no one else. Gradually, the center became a second home for me. I came not only on my on-call days, but also for holidays, for visitors' birthdays, for concerts and exhibitions, sometimes organized by local schools and colleges. Beatrice volunteered too. She ran a knitting class and often brought her famous baked goods. She and I usually came in together and left together too. Sometimes we'd stop by the wildflowers for tea and conversation. Oscar joined us less often. His arthritis worsened with the cold weather and he often stayed home. But when he came, he always made a real feast. He told funny stories from his eventful life, played the harmonica he had learned in the army, and always brought candy for the ladies. Life was getting better. I no longer woke up feeling empty and aimless. I had new friends, new interests, new meaning. I felt needed, and this is probably the most important feeling for a person of my age. Of course, thoughts of children did not leave me. Sometimes, waking up at night, I thought about them, remembered their childhood, youth, our happy moments. But then I remembered other things, their coldness, calculativeness, greed. And I realized I'd made the right choice. They tried to contact me in various ways. They came to the house, knocked on the door, left notes in the mailbox. Eunice even followed Beatrice outside her house, trying to pass me a letter through her. Beatrice returned the envelope unopened. "If your father wants to communicate with you," she told Eunice, "he will find a way to let you know." The letters came in the mail, too. At first, I read them, hoping to find in them sincere remorse, understanding of my mistakes. But I found only pleas, reproaches, sometimes threats. "You can't do this to us. We are your children. We will sue." That was the main tone of these messages. Not a word about love, about the desire to establish a relationship just like that, without conditions and money. Gradually, I stopped reading them. I just put them in my desk drawer unread. Maybe someday I'll be ready to return to them. But not now. In mid-December, I ran into Eunice at the supermarket. It was our first encounter since that fateful dinner. I was just picking out fruit for the pie Beatrice had promised to bake for the Christmas party at the center when I heard a familiar voice. Papa? I turned around. Eunice was standing a few steps away from me, basket in hand. She looked drained, tired. Her hair, which she had always dyed so carefully, was streaked with gray. "Hello, Eunice," I said calmly. You look good." She clearly didn't know where to begin. "Thank you. You too." We stood looking at each other like strangers who had met by chance in a public place. But maybe we were. Maybe we'd been strangers for a long time. We just didn't want to admit it. "Dad, Hubert and I would like to talk to you. Start over. It's Christmas. Why don't you come over for dinner? Or we could come over, like we used to, as a family." I looked at her and saw not remorse, not love, but calculation. She still hoped she could persuade me, coax me, manipulate me. "No, Eunice, I'm not coming." "But why not?" Tears appeared in her eyes, but I already knew they weren't real. "You're our father. We're your family." Family isn't just blood, Eunice. Family is love, respect, caring, something I haven't seen from you in years. "We care about you," she raised her voice, attracting the attention of other shoppers. "We've always cared about you." "You were worried about my money," I corrected her. "About who would get the house, how to divide the inheritance. I heard your conversation with Harry, remember? About when I'd give up the ends." She blushed, lowered her eyes. It had been a silly conversation. Harry didn't mean— "Eunice," I interrupted her, "let's not lie to each other. We both know the truth. You were only interested in my money. Now it's gone. So are your visits, your calls, your interest in my life. That's not true. We love you. We've been trying to reach you for months. You've changed your number. You don't answer your emails. You don't answer the door. Because I have nothing to say to you, Eunice. And it seems you have nothing to say to me either, except that you want your inheritance back." She stood rubbing the handle of the basket, not knowing what to say, because I was right, and she knew it. "Well," she said at last, "so that's the way it's going to be? Have you cut us out of your life?" "No, Eunice. You cut me out of your life a long time ago. I just finally admitted it." I turned around and walked to the register, leaving her standing there with her mouth open. It had been a hard conversation, but a necessary one. Now I could really move on, without false hopes and illusions. I met Christmas Day at the Golden Autumn Center. Martha had decorated the room with garlands and tinsel and put up a small Christmas tree. A local choir sang Christmas carols, and volunteers prepared a holiday dinner. Beatrice had baked 3 huge pies, and Oscar, overcoming the pain in his joints, played cheerful tunes on his harmonica. I looked at these people. Many of them had also been abandoned by their children or had no children at all, and saw not pathetic, lonely old men, but strong, wise, honorable people. People who found the strength to live life to the fullest, despite all the losses and disappointments. Edna Mortimer, as always elegant even at her age, raised a glass of non-alcoholic punch. "To us, my dears, to the fact that we are still here, that we are together, that we can enjoy life. Here's to us." Everyone cheered, and I raised my glass too. The evening continued until late in the evening. We sang, danced, as much as our old bones would allow, told life stories, and reminisced about Christmases past. I couldn't remember the last time I felt this good about the holiday. As Beatrice and I drove back home, she lived only a couple blocks from me, and I insisted on walking her. The snow was falling in large flakes, covering the streets of Billings in a blanket of white. The city seemed dreamy, magical. "Thank you, Mervyn," Beatrice said when we reached her house. "It was a wonderful Christmas." "Thank you, Beatrice," I replied, "for your support, for your friendship, for being there for me." She smiled, and in the lamplight I saw tears glisten in her eyes. "You know, Mervyn, sometimes family isn't about those who are related to us by blood, but those who are related to us by soul. I nodded, unable to speak from the overwhelming feelings. When I reached my house, I stepped up onto the porch and turned around, looking out onto the snowy street. Lights in the windows of neighboring houses, Christmas decorations on doors, the sounds of distant songs. Life went on around me, and I was a part of it. I thought of Dorothea, of our Christmases together, of how she always said family was the greatest treasure. She was right. But family isn't just those who carry your last name or share blood with you. Family is those who love you for who you are, who value your heart, not your wallet. Those who choose to be there for you not because of gain, but because of genuine affection. At my age, many people fear loneliness more than death. They give up everything, money, self-respect, freedom, just so they won't be alone. I almost became one of them. But now I knew that being lonely and being alone are different things. You can be surrounded by people, even blood relatives, and feel infinitely lonely. Or you can live alone but have real friends, real connections, a real family, even if it's not the one you were born with. I opened the door and entered the house, my home, my fortress. There was no more room for those who saw me only as a wallet, but there would always be room for those who saw me as a human being, for my real family, the one I had chosen for myself, and the one that had chosen me.